This is the brand new white version of the Shadow Rock 3 from Be Quiet. I'm going to show you what comes in the box, how to install it, and how it performs. The Shadow Rock series sits in the middle of Be Quiet's lineup of CPU air coolers. We've got the Pure Rock series at the entry level, and the Dark Rock series covering the high end. The standard aluminum version of the Shadow Rock 3 sells for about $50, and it's a 190 watt TDP cooler. This new white version is also 190 watt TDP, but it'll cost you a $10 premium at about $60 US. The cooler comes packed tightly in a cardboard box along with an installation guide, mounting hardware for Intel and AMD, and there's also a small tube of thermal paste in there as well. We've got some wire fan mounting clips, a 120mm Shadow Wings 2 PWM fan, and a magnetic screwdriver to help with installation. The tower's dimensions are 121mm long, 130mm wide, and 163mm tall, and it weighs about 700 grams. It's made of aluminum and it feels solid and well made in the hands. It uses an asymmetrical design that keeps the face of the cooler away from the memory slots to avoid conflicts, and that also means that it's not really designed for quad channel memory setups with RAM slots on both sides of the CPU socket. And that's fine, because a 190 watt TDP cooler isn't really something you want on those extreme systems that use quad channel memory anyway. There's a total of 30 aluminum fins on here, and that's not really the highest density for a cooler of this size, and it makes the spaces between the fins really noticeable. There's 5 6mm diameter direct contact heat pipes with a copper base, and they all have that same white treatment as the rest of the cooler, and you know what? It looks awesome in my opinion. It's a nice change from the typical copper or nickel plated look that you get with a lot of coolers out there. The fan's a 120mm Shadow Wings 2 PWM fan with a max RPM of 1600, and it's supposed to keep things pretty quiet, emitting less than 25 decibels at max speed, according to Be Quiet. It's compatible with AMD sockets AM3 and AM4, and Intel 1200, 2066, 1150, 51, 55, and 2011. The included instructions are pretty easy to follow, and they guide you step by step through the installation process for both Intel and AMD platforms. Installing on Intel LGA 1151 starts with the placement of the metal backplate on the back of the motherboard. Next, 4 spacers are screwed down onto the threaded rods of the backplate, and 2 mounting brackets are installed on the left and right sides of the CPU socket. Next, we'll apply some of the included thermal paste and then place the cooler down onto the CPU and fasten it into place. And the included extra long magnetic screwdriver definitely comes in handy here. To finish it all off, we'll secure the fan to the front of the cooler with the included mounting clips and plug the connector into the PWM header on the motherboard. For the performance testing, I ran the Shadow Rock 3 on an Intel Core i9-9900K in an Asus ROG Strix motherboard with 32GB of Vengeance Pro memory at 3200 MHz, and the video card was a GTX 1080 Ti. And all the temperatures that I'm about to show you are the maximum temperature recorded during each test, and not the average over a period of time. Cinebench R20 maxes out all 8 cores and 16 threads on the 9900K, and at the lowest fan speed tested, things got pretty hot, hitting 90 Celsius, but moving the fan speed up had a significant impact, bringing maximum recorded temperatures all the way down to 78 at 100% fan speed. 3D Mark Time Spy isn't pushing the CPU anywhere near as hard as Cinebench, resulting in a max temp of just 74 C, with the fan all the way down at 25%. Temperatures continued to drop a bit as the fan speed increased, but the overall reduction from 25 to 100% fan speed was only 4 degrees. Playing games at 1440p is a nice middle ground between 4K and 1080p resolution, offering good image quality without being too hard on the GPU. At the lowest fan speed tested, the 9900K hit 80C, which I think is kinda hot for this type of workload. Moving up to 50 and 75% fan speed brought the temps down to a much more reasonable 73C, and the Shadow Rock 3 managed to achieve sub 70 degrees Celsius temps at 100% fan speed. This graph shows total system noise, which includes other sources of noise like the video card and the power supply. With the system at idle, everything's pretty much whisper quiet until we get the Shadow Rock 3 up to its max fan speed. And even then, the total system emitted just under 28 decibels. This is a very good result for a cooler that's capable of delivering this kind of performance. A CPU like the 9900K is probably the upper limit of what I'd consider using with the Shadow Rock 3, and on the AMD side, that's probably something like a 3900X and below, but you gotta consider this is a $60 cooler, so at that price point, that's a really good place to be, because the 9900K and a 3900X are really not easy CPUs to cool by any means. And when you consider further the fact that most people are buying CPUs that sit below the 9900K in terms of cooling requirements, for all of those system builders, the Shadow Rock 3 is gonna be a really solid option. It's gonna cost you $50 or $60 depending on which version you go with, and it's gonna get the job done, and it might even leave enough room on the table for some moderate overclocking, depending on the CPU and hardware configuration that you have have in your system. With a mid-range price tag, solid cooling performance, good looks, and near silent operation, it's going to be pretty hard to go wrong with the Be Quiet Shadow Rock 3 for a mid-range system build. This white version costs $60, but if white's not really your thing and doesn't mesh well with the other colors of your system components, check out the standard aluminum version as well. That one will save you $10 and come in at $50 and still give you the same cooling performance. I'm going to put the purchasing links down in the description. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, and share, and we'll see ya.